The eugenics movement was funded primarily by Draper and Herbert Walker, who was George W. Bush's great-grandfather. And, of course, his father, Bush Sr., has made some of the most outrageous, obnoxious statements about getting rid of the useless eaters, those people who consume food but they don't apparently serve any purpose in the world. But this is a theme running throughout the whole Bush-Harriman thinking, and I'm afraid that, of course, it's very much in line with Zionist thinking, racial superiority. But Herbert Walker, in 24, had a very strong relationship with Fritz Thiessen, and Alan Dulles of Sullivan Cromwell, and their involvement was very much involved with bringing Hitler to power. It was their agenda. The America-Hamburg line was run by them, and Prescott Bush, of course, President Bush's grandfather. They were all involved and arrested in 1942 for trading with the enemy. They were arrested. So this is the family. You talked earlier on about this criminal, or the banksters, or these criminal groups. Yes, they are criminals. They are criminals. And the looted stuff in Baghdad, for instance, just recently, it will already have been fenced. People will already have received that. So let's beat about the bush, let's say, for want of a better expression. But let's beat about the bush and get the truth out of him. That's my opinion.
Would that explain the Western world's dehumanization of the Arab people in public eye by Western media now for so long, particularly in reference to the Israeli-Arab conflict?
Yes, I think the Schwarzenegger approach to diplomacy, you know, calling the Arabs ragheads. This is like we did with the Irish, and so you have to demonize them so you can steal off them. The American Indians, look, for God's sake, when are we going to see the first American democratically elected Cherokee or Sioux Indian? When are we going to see that? If there is representation, Iraq will be waiting as long as the Sioux nation. And there's no chance of it. We have this hypocrisy. You mentioned plutocracy, yes. And it's something that we have to wake up to the fact that if voting was intended to change anything, they would outlaw it. And so the voting is only for this group, for the masters. The interesting thing is, under the race hygiene references in terms of IQ, I'm afraid that grandson George would have been sterilized at birth according to their agenda or their ideas about intelligence. So he would not be considered suitable breeding stock.
Many modern historians are concerned about the pattern of events unfolding in the United States, particularly because of the similarity between the rise of fascism and the right-wing movement in Europe and the events that led to World War II and what we see unfolding, and this new apparent era of American militant militarism. Do you agree with their concerns?
Oh, yes. I mean, we have to be completely... Once we know how the game's been played twice, they say if it happens the first time, it's happenstance. The second time, it's coincidence. But the third time, it's open warfare. And we've seen that the most violent wars have been those waged by the so-called democratically elected governments. But remember, Hitler came to power through the ballot box. He won an election because the American Federal Reserve and the Bank of England brought the conditions in Germany, having destroyed the middle classes with the inflation. Helmar Shank came from JP Morgan, from New York, and was put into Germany, and he stopped inflation overnight by his implementation of what we would call the Sharia solution. So Hitler's banker was tried at Nuremberg but wasn't hung, and the worst culprit, in actual fact, was the governor of the Bank of England, Montague Norman, who also was with Brown Brothers Harriman, this bank that was started and involved with Herbert Walker and Prescott Bush and the Bush family. These are the guys that brought Hitler to power. But the Bank of England, the governor, he was never tried, but Churchill was going to hang him for treason, because until as late as 1942, Helmar Shank, JP Morgan, and former JP Morgan, but continuing to be JP Morgan, and the governor of the Bank of England, Montague Norman, were both still communicating as late as 1942. And Churchill ordered Marsh, who was his secretary, to informed the Montagu Norman that we've been at war with Germany for 2 years. Would he mind stop corresponding with the head of the Reichsbank? So this is the shows that, but they were never tried. Many were tried at Nuremberg, but the bankers were all let free. But the point is that during the entire period of the war, the bankers from Italy, France, Britain, America, and Germany were all meeting still in Switzerland during the entire period of the war. So the Bâle Convention and the Bank of International Settlements. The real criminals are the bankers, and they pitch everybody against themselves.
Do you then equate 9/11 with the burning of the German parliament? Is that the same pretext?
So, yes, I think that this was a 9/11 moment, let's say, as was the Lusitania. You have to create the pretext. People were not, the Americans didn't want to go to war, the Americans didn't want to go to this war, but they've been, so you have to commit some act. But it's like finding out that the head of the fire brigade, who was looking to improve his productivity, he has a brother who's an arsonist. So when the people find that out, you see they hang the pair of them. So it's fine coming as the liberator. Let us liberate you from your art treasures. Let us liberate you from your oil and everything else. This is the nature of reasoned barbarism. And let us look at the barbaric way the people have been treated. Yes, they had a tyrant, and everybody would agree that Saddam was a tyrant, but why the hell were they supporting him, this American administration, with Rumsfeld going and providing him with the weapons of mass destruction, and CNN are disguising the fact by weapons of mass distraction, keeping people's eye off the ball. So I'm afraid that there has to be an accounting, and all of them should be tried for war crimes. That's the Bush family, the Rumsfelds, and everybody else, including Saddam and his sons. I mean, this is the axis of evil, and I'm afraid that it's time to take the gloves off. We have to bring them to account.
We've witnessed the military occupation of Palestine, the military occupation of Afghanistan, and now Iraq. Threats are now being made also against Syria and Iran. Who's the real benefactor from all of this?
It has to be that Israel is the beneficiary. It can't be that, because this policy only benefits the oil companies and the State of Israel, which, of course, if we look at Ben-Gurion's prediction in 1948 and 1962 in the Look magazine and Life magazine, the greater State of Israel and world government will be in Jerusalem. And by 1987, Glasnost and Perestroika would come about exactly in line. There is a plan, and it is a conspiracy. But it's a conspiracy not by the ones who are accused of conspiring. Frank Vanderlip, for instance, where in 1910, when they brought about the Federal Reserve, he admits in his memoirs, and he was the agent for Rockefeller, that they were acting, this is Rockefeller and all the groups, J.P. Morgan, in Jekyll Island, playing Jekyll and Hyde, I suppose, was that they conspired like conspirators to bring about the Ames Bill that eventually brought the Federal Reserve into existence. So they admit they are conspirators.